I'd like to start out by thanking all of you who took the time to post your questions. This video couldn't take place without you, so I thank you. Let's begin. Do you think Neil Della Croce should have gotten the boss position? At the time of Carlo Gambino's death in October 1976, Della Croce was serving federal time for tax evasion. Gambino, prior to his death, chose his cousin Paul Castellano as his successor, a position that absolutely should have went to Della Croce. Throughout my time in the life and what I know of, nepotism plays a major role in how things are carried out. Who do you think are some of the more honorable guys still out there? Well, to start with, there are very few and far in between. I always put Lorenzo Menino in the honorable category, and this is because in my dealings with him, that's what he displayed. The other person would be former Bonanno acting boss, Joe Camerano. And Joe's not only honorable, but was always a gentleman, and I'll always wish him nothing but the best in life. What lessons from the life, if any, have you learned that helps you in business? It wouldn't be so much what I learned from the life, but as a result of what took place. And it comes in the form of a Russian saying, and I hope I say it right, "Proverei, no proverei." Trust, but verify. It's essential to verify all aspects when it comes to business. Do you think guys in the life are going to start looking at podcasts or using social media as another way to make money, or is that going to be frowned upon? I've given some background on this very subject in a recent video, and the answer is it's not frowned upon, but heavily frowned upon. Here's an interesting question. The shape of the Mill Creek Mall in Erie, Pennsylvania resembles a gun, which points to the center of downtown Erie. Legend and rumors say the mob was involved in its construction and it was some type of warning. Do you have any inside knowledge? Also, are you aware of any other examples of messages sent by the mob in the form of a building or landmark? I honestly have no other examples that I know of. That mall was built in the early 70s by the Cafaro Company out of Youngstown, Ohio. So it's likely that James Lacavoli, the boss in Cleveland, had influence with the project. What's your thoughts and opinions on the passing of Colombo captain Vincent Vinny Union's Ricciardo? Well, it's never a good thing when a person dies while incarcerated, but I'm sure Anthony Zizzo was happy to hear the news. What do you think would have happened had Neil Migliore took over as the Lucchese boss instead of Vic Camuso? Do you think the family would be much more stable than it is now? Neil was a throwback and an old-timer and a major earner, and had he ever been the boss of the family, I believe it would be a much wealthier family today. If there was one thing you could have said to Anthony Gaspipe Castle while he was on the run and ordering hits, what would it be and why? My advice to him would be to take all his money and sail into the sunset, because you can't be removed from the street and still try to control it on a daily basis. Gaspipe was on an ego trip as well as delusional and ordering murders at the same time. Definitely not a good mixture. Do you think there's still made guys out there who've gone under the radar and are completely unknown to law enforcement, or is that basically an impossibility these days? There may be a guy here or there, maybe, but the government knows just about every guy in that life. In a prior video, you mentioned that Frank Lastarino said to you, look for the good in people. Was there any other member who said something like this or similar that had a positive impact on you? There was a lot of things said to me by different people. Joe C., for example. One time we were sitting outside of a restaurant while his guy and Johnny Sideburns was sitting down at a table arguing. And Joe explained that sometimes it was better to sit on the sidelines, which was a lesson in itself. Will the rules of engagement still apply to a guy that's on the shelf? Specifically, would you get in trouble for laying your hands on him or going with his girl? I personally never been on the shelf, but the rules should apply. Although I know of one guy who was assaulted while on the shelf. As far as going with another guy's girl in that life, that's supposed to be a rule, one that if broken, you pay for with your life. If the Frank Costello hit was successful, do you think Lucky Luciano would have stepped in to take care of Genovese? I don't believe so, or else he would have reacted after the attempt on Costello. Luciano at the time had been deported to Italy. There are some claims that he helped pay off the drug dealer that testified against Genovese and caused Genovese to get a 15-year sentence, but who knows for sure? When Tommy Bilotti was killed, does the Gambino family continue to give his wife money to live? I know he had a lot of kids. Just wondering if the family is taken care of. Definitely not. Following the deaths of Castellano and Bilotti, murders ordered by Gotti, Gotti became the boss of the family and was not sending money to a guy's family that he just had killed. Do you know Blaze Carrazzo's son Nicholas to be a Gambino member? During my time, I knew Blaze Jr. and his brother Nicky to be associates with that family. If that changed, it took place after my time. They both happened to be nice guys. In pictures I have seen of Matthew Madonna, he has a if looks could kill look. Is he as tough as his pictures make him out to be? Most of the time that I remember, Matty was smiling and laughing, but I'm sure Matty has a rougher side to him. Once again, if you're a member in that life, it's mandatory that you're a tough guy. The following two questions have to do with food. Who, in your opinion, serves the best calzones in all of New York City? I'm sure there's a lot of spots who make good calzones. The two places that come to mind is Anthony Coal-Fired Pizza and Campagna. Both were very good. What restaurant in New York has the best veal parm or veal chops? I personally never order veal parmesan when I'm out. Rayo's has good veal, and I also enjoyed the veal at Rosemary's in Farmingdale, where I spent a great deal of time. Back in your prison days, how did other inmates view Christian prisoners, and did they find trouble just as much as other groups in the prison system did? Most guys who attended church were labeled Bible thumpers, a label that was mostly aimed at Protestants. As far as getting in trouble, it really didn't matter if you were religious or not. It's a life choice. If a person gets involved in something that could cause some problems or not. What is your perspective on the Anthony Zizzo murder? Anthony Zizzo, the former Chicago Wonder Boss, disappeared early in September 2006 after telling his wife that he had a meeting to attend. His Jeep Cherokee was discovered empty in the parking lot of a Melrose Park restaurant. There were several theories, one being he staged his own disappearance to avoid prosecution. Another was that he was an informant and placed in WITSEC. And the last and most probable one was that he was a victim of a murder. I personally think he parked his car, got into another car that was taking him to this alleged meeting, and they hit him. How come there hasn't been any big arrest, especially in Staten Island, where everyone's hanging out in the open, even people who are still on paper? Well, with the exception of anyone on paper, hanging out in the open is not considered a crime. As far as arrests, the FBI takes their time. They stack their deck, so to speak. And most of the time, a case takes years before any arrests are actually made. Here's a related question. Is it true that they do big arrests before holidays? This is similar to the theory that a pinch usually comes on Thursdays. The holiday theory is one where the FBI hopes to play on the fact that a guy wants to be home with his family for the holidays. The accurate answer is a pinch can take place on any day of the week and typically take place at 5 or 6 in the morning. Did you ever hear of someone getting paranoid that they may have been taken out and just upped and vanished? And did you know or hear of someone who had to do something in their life and was traumatized for it afterwards? If you're suggesting being killed for being paranoid, 80-90% of the mob would be killed if that were the case. I also don't know anyone that did anything that traumatized them. Did you ever hear of Vic and Gaspipe's reign of paranoia and treachery being discussed between members who were around in that era, or was it a taboo subject because Vic is still the official boss? All but one person spoke about the paranoia going on back then, and this person said that he hated when he had to drop off an envelope to Gas. Other than that, nobody really mentioned too much about that. Please remember to like this video if you haven't already. Also, anyone who'd like to show their appreciation and help keep this podcast going can do so by either the Super Thanks icon down below or the PayPal Cash App links in the video's description. And for the last question, how long do you think you'll continue to post content on YouTube and your blog? And what is your favorite part of making videos and writing content on your platforms? I really don't know how long I plan on doing this. It's definitely not a long-term goal. My favorite part regarding videos are posting them because it's a lot of work just to produce a single video. As far as a favorite part of writing content for the blog, that would be taking the information gleaned from researching and piecing it all together to create the blog. Most of the time, it's interesting and enjoyable. but there are times when it's not. In all honesty, it's always a challenge for me not being a professional or possessing a degree in journalism. Nonetheless, I am proud of myself for improving and, more importantly, sticking it out in the face of constant discouragement. It is said that with infinite patience and perseverance, success is bound to come.